Cheers. Thank you.
Derek, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have you here. I have known you longer than I've known most people in San Francisco at this point. I moved here in 18. We met in 19. I think I started working lunch shifts at Boulevard in December of 18. And then I was there as long as I could be there until the pandemic. And I always enjoyed working with you most days. Some days, when we were both maybe a little stressed, it was a little challenging. But I think that, one of the things that I always really respected that we were just talking about is, you had a high standard and you executed well and you cared, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And that's something that I feel like is sometimes lost in the hospitality industry. It's the day-to-day grind or it's the cash. And then, what happened to, giving a fuck about doing a good job? You know what I mean? So
Yeah, you got to give a fuck. It's enjoying the hospitality. It's enjoying giving it to them. It's not about making everything perfect, but it's putting your heart into it and your soul and really developing something so the guests could really enjoy it and have the full experience than having a part experience because something was off because of a cook decided not to make it wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, to me that the hospitality industry is something so beautiful in a way that the people that work in it mostly always work in it because they care.
Yeah.
And there's that feeling. And I've always said I've had tables that I've worked that tipped me huge or I had a massive tab and I made a lot of money on. And that's great, but sometimes I get this couple that would come in and they're celebrating saved up all year to have a meal and they're celebrating their anniversary or a birthday or whatever, and they spend significantly less than everybody else, but they have a great time and they're excited to be there and they leave and they just say thank you. Mm-hmm. And you feel it. It's not a thank you thanks, it's a thank you thank you.
Yeah, they appreciated everything.
Yeah, and I'm fuck, that's the high I chase.
Yeah.
I'm I chase the high of feeling that feeling of just making somebody so comfortable and happy that it's a memorable experience. You know what I mean? So.
I kind of do that where it's if I walk out of a restaurant, I'm saying thank you to the host after too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's when it's okay, they did an awesome job with the whole way. It's even I take into play now is the tipping. I think it's really important on how you tip. It's not just these people make nothing. Let's give them the no. It's this is their job. Let's show that they did a wonderful job by appreciating them, by giving them that tip that they deserve.
Yeah.
Not walking out there without giving a tip. But I think it's important, though, to get the full experience of what the owners want to give to the people. I think that should be taught to the servers and to the cooks on what their full approach is and keep them to a high standard.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for a high standard.
Yeah.
It's okay, nothing's perfect, but for sure a high standard through the restaurant system is key to succeed.
It's important. It gives you a bar.
Yeah.
Right? You're reaching for something. You're pushing for something. And like you said, it's not perfect, but you shouldn't not strive for being better every day, That's how I think about it at least.
Yeah, you're always going a little at a time. Up. As long as you're reaching where you're trying to go, it's all that matters.
Yeah.
It's not about who's giving you what kind of review you got. It's if that person gave you a review and it was a bad one, well, you're going to go back and figure out what happened that night, that day, and make sure that never happens again. So someone that reads that review is oh, I don't get why they left that review.
Yeah. Yeah, when you look at reviews and it's a bunch of 5 out of 5 or whatever Yelp uses and and you're great, and then you see one and it's service fucking sucked, but then everything else is service was great. You're that person just had an off experience, right? It doesn't define the restaurant, right?
Yeah.
It's and I always said this when I was trained in management, forever ago. I had to watch these VHS tapes on how to deal with a complaining customer. This is in 2008, and one of the things was the Silent Avenger was this archetype that your customer would have. And it was like, it's important to fish the complaint out of the customer. And that's where I think like a lot of people hate Yelp, and I hate Yelp for a lot of reasons, but like Yelp is also a great place where somebody can like leave a review and like there's potentially something that you can learn and grow from in there. Right. But the Silent Avenger was the one that leaves and doesn't say anything, and then goes and tells the next 10 people they see how shitty the experience was.
Yeah.
And you're not, that the ripple effect of that kind of an experience is like something you don't see and you have no control over.
It's like some chefs, they're like, oh, I don't look at reviews, I don't care what they say. But I'm like, but how does that not work though? Just because that person doesn't know what you wanted to do, it's like, but that person might have had something that they know what happened, and then that mistake never happens again.
6 people in a row say the food's too salty. Maybe adjust the food. Maybe just the salt.
I would love looking at reviews every few months just to see how excited people got over the food, because then that got me excited when I was a cook to keep cooking that food greater and greater and greater.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing when chefs are like, oh, no, reviews, I don't care about them. I'm shooting for this. And I'm like, I've always looked at it like, why? Why are we shooting for our way? Why not we look at it the whole way?
Yeah.
It's a big thing, especially when I like became a chef at a restaurant. It was like, no, the reviews are important to see where the standards are and see what might be going wrong if you do have customers. But
yeah. Well, let's take a step back, and obviously you and I have known each other for a long time, so it's easy for us to just jump into a conversation. But one of the things that we always try to do is we always try to kind of like give everybody kind of your background, your story, how you got into the restaurant industry, and kind of like, you know, what you're up to now. So
takes me back to a long time ago, probably when I was 8. I grew up on the East Coast down in South Florida, and Publix supermarket had pamphlets. Cook this, cook that, cook that. And I've always watched Food Network, as that was my cartoons growing up. It was the best thing. Barefoot Contessa, Ina Garden. You guys all should know who she is.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful, sweet lady, and a dream to meet her one day. But that's who got me started in the kitchen. Wow. It was her. I just remember making her green beans with the almonds and garlic and lemon. I'm like, wow, this is ridiculous. You can make food this well and take a picture and put it in a cookbook. That's where it all started. And then one day I went back home to Toronto. I'm from Toronto originally. And I went to a tasting menu in a cabin, and a palate cleanser. So cool. What?
Yeah. What is this?
And that's when the ticking bell in my head was like, hold on, this could be awesome. It was always like, oh, do I want to be a doctor, or do I really want to like pursue this? Yeah. And then, so 19, I'm like, Dad, I want to go in the restaurants. Everyone's saying my food's great. I'm in a dorm going to school for who the heck fuck knows what.
Yeah. Just because you have to.
Just because I have to. And I'm like, no, let me try school. No, this is cool. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, that part of school could have been great for me but thank God for AI.
I'll tell you what.
So 19, I dropped out of college and went into my first restaurant at Pistache down in West Palm, French restaurant, and begged 10 restaurants before that one to hire me. French guy comes out, you want a job right now? I'm like, yes, I do. Nervous as fuck.
Yeah.
Go back at 3 o'clock, slip in the fryer station, bust my knee. This is my first day on the job. Yeah. And life was history. It kind of took me through a whirlwind. Worked in Nantucket for a little bit, worked for a master French pastry chef. Learned everything down at PB Catch in Florida. That was probably like the best thing. That's where I found a mentor, guided me through everything. And then I met a really good friend of mine that told me about a job in California, came out to California in Palo Alto, worked there for a little bit, and then I ventured off into a place called Boulevard, where we both met. That's the long story. And then through that time, I was at Boulevard for 4 years as Nancy and Dana's sous chef, one of them. And that was just an amazing experience. Got me to new levels of my career, taught me so much. That pushed me to the next level of becoming a full-on chef and running restaurants and doing that whole thing. And now I'm in between jobs, doing that. The best part, though, was probably moving to Denver during COVID time of my career. Kind of like taught me something, how to take a step back. Was in the mix of anything because I moved to Denver 10 days before COVID started. I was planning to open up something there. Wasn't sure what, but something for sure. And COVID taught me how much like the body needed rest. I was going a lot in a kitchen, but it taught me how to be thoughtful of being inside of a kitchen more. I learned how to meditate. Been meditating for 5 years now, which I do every day, twice a day, 10 minutes a day. Took me some time to learn, but I understood it when I went through it, and now it has changed me to be a different chef in the kitchen, not the one when I was a sous chef and not yelling, but stern and hard on the cooks, because that was my job, to make sure that the chef that I was working for, standards was in play. Moved to Denver, found my first chef job. It was at Black Cat Farms, a dream job of mine. It was in the mountain ranges, farm, fields, animals. Like, it was my dream job. Like, right. if I was a kid, that was my dream, to have windows looking out into the farm and cooking. I did that for a while. I was like a teacher, though, there. It was pretty interesting because you can't recruit cooks. Right. You're not driving an hour to a farm job where it snows half the year. Yeah. And that was probably the hardest part because I had high schoolers as my employees.
Right. Wow.
I had high schoolers and an intern from, I think, like Le Cordon Bleu.
Wow.
So I had a right person, but I needed to do everything. I kind of learned how to delegate a lot. It was really like delegate the easy things that take a lot of time to the high schoolers. But it was very interesting watching them grow and really like be like, oh, I made that already. Like, I know how to do this. So it was really like, wow, you could teach others how to cook. And it was pretty amazing to get there. I left that job shortly. That was a very tough job when you're a teacher and a chef at the same time. So I left that, and then Boulevard called me back up when they were reopening up their inside and asked me to come back out. And life fell back in love with San Francisco, the food and the produce and life. So came back, moved back here a year after, and was in between jobs. Found the Roaming Goat. It's a Mediterranean wine bar, Georgian, Armenian mainly focused. Started that kitchen up, started the menu from scratch, basically consulted and was their chef there for like a year and a half. And went to corporate for a little bit because I had to try that out, see where life could go there. Wasn't that great for me. Learning experience, yes. But wasn't for me. I left that a little bit ago, and now I'm in between jobs, doing some things, consulting. And I'm excited where the next part of my career takes me to.
That's beautiful. I think, it's cool to see that you've like kind of bounced around as much as you have throughout the country and seen, the East Coast and the West Coast. And, Florida, I guess, is like technically the East Coast and the Gulf at the same time, right? So you've kind of experienced so much of a range of things that I'm sure that gives you a lot of perspective too, versus, like you said, coming back to San Francisco and falling back in love with the produce and all the things that we have here is like, Bianca and I went to Monterey a couple weekends ago just to get out of town. We needed to unplug a little bit, and we were like looking for restaurants, and we went to this, I'll leave it a nameless restaurant. But we went and had like all these great reviews, and we went in and we were like, this is supposed to be one of the best wine lists in this town. And we're like, whoa. And then we tried the food and we're like, it's fine, but it was just as expensive as San Francisco and definitely not as good as San Francisco. And that was one of the first times in 6 years that I've lived here and been like, maybe it's worth how much we pay to live here, right? Because it's expensive, but you're eating the best food, You have great access.
We could be in Asia, and the next thing you know, you're in the Mediterranean, and the next thing you know, you're in Germany, and then, you're in France, and then you're in South America, and then Central. So I think it's well worth living here and what you pay for to enjoy. Yeah, like it's definitely a place to enjoy life. It's not a place just to live in a roof and have food whenever you want it. This is you have the food all year around.
Yeah.
You have every. And this is what I love about San Francisco. You have everything you need.
Every restaurant. I mean, there's Ethiopian restaurants. There's, I mean, I don't know. I was talking to Tim. Likes this. What's that? Good Culture Club. What's their cuisine?
Filipino.
No. Maybe I'm thinking of a different one. Whatever it is, I just remember like Lao. Is it Lao? I don't know.
Yeah, it's Lao.
It's Lao.
It's Lao.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know of any other restaurant that I've ever been to that serves Lao food. I mean, maybe there's, a couple Lao dishes or Lao inspiration or something, right? But not focused on it. And it's funny to see like some of the tech people that work, in San Francisco and, stay in their home every day and order DoorDash or order Uber Eats or whatever, and like don't get out and explore the city and kind of just like eat what they eat and like go to the office and work. And it's like, it's a really pretty city. Most parts are really pretty, and the restaurant scene is outstanding.
Yeah. Since been back here, it's been different walking through restaurants and seeing the streets at night, like where they're not jam packed right now. And I'm like, there's so many people that live here and they're not getting out. And I'm like, why are we hibernating when we're the ones who need the city to thrive here? It's the people who live here that makes everything here thrive. If we're not feeding them money, because that's what generates everybody here, they're going to crash. And then what we're going to see is, what I think I've been seeing is a lot of the restaurants and bakeries and cafes that have been here for a good amount of time, let's say 8-10 years, maybe a little bit before that too, that they're just opening up more. And then I'm like worried, I'm like, hold on, but what about the young guns or the ones that really want to do this? They can't just be for the ones who have a bank that's kind of full that could explore more and open more, because then we're just going to have the same stuff in all the neighborhoods that are so similar. I think it's important to keep like a very well versatile style dining here, though. It's what San Francisco, I feel like, is. Yeah.
I mean, you nailed it, and that's something that I've talked about in the past too, is like that you look at the new restaurants that are opening, and all the new restaurants that are opening are part of restaurant groups.
Yeah.
Or if there's something new that's opening, right? It's like, it's a big deal. It's getting a lot of press. And I feel like that's another thing that's maybe challenging too, is like, if you want to open a new restaurant, like depending on what neighborhood you're in, like the neighborhood might not necessarily sustain you because people can't afford to go out and eat the same meal or in your restaurant once a week.
Or there's that one restaurant that's been there forever and everyone goes there and they're like, it's very, that's what I'm finding too in neighborhoods. You're like, oh, this one closed that's been there for 36 years. Yeah. And then one tries to open and they can't make it because people are like, it doesn't hold up to the standards that something there was before. I think that's also the hard part too now with restaurants.
Yeah, following in the footsteps of other people, and then also, what I was getting at too is it's like the PR thing. Like that's another thing. A lot of restaurants are spending a lot of money on PR and they're spending a lot of money on marketing, and that's really great and it gets a lot of people in the door.
Yeah.
But if you're not delivering on the product once they're there, they're not coming back. And so you're putting up a lot of money up front to create this buzz and to get this energy and to get these people in your door. But it's like, ultimately at the end of the day, like if you're doing 150 covers a night and you're doing like okay food and okay service, you're not going to have as much sustainability as you would if you were doing 100 covers and providing quality service and quality food.
Yeah. So where do you think that would be going if the restaurant saw that and was like, hold on, we can't just change because this whole thing's messed us up for 4 years or whatever. Like we got to now take a different approach to it all. But how can we drive people to come back in that used to come back in here all the time with the prices going up here and there, because it's a business. They have to pay. It's a high minimum wage here. And how does a restaurant sustain people then making things smaller and making the prices higher?
Yep.
Where I've eaten at places and I'm like, hold on, that has changed recently. And I'm just like, why did they change it? Like, why didn't they figure out how to reevaluate their menu or add this to it instead of taking something away from it all and like descaling, let's just say pork belly. They're like, it's 6 ounces, now it's 3 ounces. It's like, but who's going to buy that, or who's going to come back and be like, hey, I just spent $25 on a piece of pork belly. Now it used to be $18. Like something's not adding up here. Where I'm curious on how will restaurants and people in the hospitality industry here like make it feel crowded again, make it feel lively again, because I feel like there's still a lost here.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know what to say, but like it when I go into the restaurants, it's like, wow, they're empty right now.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them are, and then additionally on top of that, this another thing that we talk about a lot is like this non-drinking crowd that's taking place, the neo-prohibitionist kind of evolution that's taken place too. Is like, a lot of restaurants have really hedged their bet on their beverage program, and they're used to making 13% cost of sale on liquor, so they can afford a 33% cost of sale on food.
Yeah.
And labor is always like kind of a fixed rate, but with minimum wage increasing, cost of goods increasing, rent probably increasing, taxes increasing, and all of these other things that are taking place. And then on top of that, people aren't drinking. The restaurants are just kind of like, they're fighting a war on many fronts, right? It's like you're putting out a lot of little fires. Like, which one do you prioritize? And then you put this one out and those two get bigger, and then you put that one out and then the other one started up again, and it's this whole kind of like, I don't know, scary, like, whack-a-mole kind of thing is what it feels like. But I don't know, we'll see. I think it'll be interesting to see. You're going back to Florida soon, but when was the last time that you were in Florida?
The last time I was in Florida was last December.
So okay.
Last year, a year ago, yeah.
I'd be interested to see kind of how, when you go, if you have time to kind of pop around, like what they're doing and like how they're making it work, because, Texas and Florida are apparently flourishing. New York, the wine scene in New York apparently is just as good as it's ever been, and the restaurant scene's supposed to be doing really well too. So I'm curious where we're kind of like dragging our feet, or if we're like, stuck in the past, one foot in the past, one foot in the future, or something like that. So you have to do some recon.
I think it's one step in the past and one step trying to go to the future, and people don't want to lose what they had in the past to go into the future, because that's a great reason. Yes, Texas, Florida, they're flourishing, and a lot of people move there, but that's one thing that I noticed though, even when I went to Europe, things were flourishing. Why is that stuff flourishing, but this great city that was the food capital of the world still is, but I could also see it weaning down shortly. But why is there other places in this country that are doing wow?
Yeah.
And there's like, for instance, Florida and Texas, right? Big restaurants.
Yeah.
Big restaurants.
Yeah.
Thousands of square footage.
Yeah.
How do they hold 100, 300, 400, like, and they keep that going all year around. Yes, there's two things. They have snowbirds. They have people that come from the north that are retired, but it's also, when I was there, what they did on the off season was the greatest part. They had great buy one, get ones. They had a great happy hour. They extended their happy hour. They had different ways to get people to feel intrigued, not just restaurant week where you could get a full 4-course meal for $64 and feel fabulous that you were able to try a restaurant that had a tasting menu for a week. But I feel like that side of town, like Florida, I know that part more, is they do things a certain way, and they do cater to what the guests need. They cook the food that they want and to what their atmosphere is and all that stuff, but they read what the guests want. And I feel like a lot of restaurants here, maybe, want to keep going what they have been doing in the past, and they don't want to elevate to the next level. Meaning, if that's like building their share plates to be a little bit bigger, right? Hey, we got to lose this farm because this farm is better. Do it. It's not that that farm is losing. That farm doesn't want to give you the same product for a better price so you don't leave. How do a farm and a restaurant make a better deal when they're not like a Michelin restaurant that has their own farm that they could get whatever they want when they want?
Yeah.
But how does a restaurant that a case of romaine, let's say, that grows at this farm, but it's cheaper at the other farm, well, you're going to have to leave, and that farm just can't win that $2 that you're holding in your pocket.
Yeah.
I think restaurants in the Southeast, they do such a good job because they have a theme to their restaurant. It's not just a name and then there's a theme to it. For instance, one of the chefs I worked for, he brought like his French flair to it, and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Like there's like Saint Tropez style stuff going on there, and I think it's really making the place happening. Where how much money do we have here when we open up a restaurant here?
Yeah.
It's really hard. You look at the ones that you could tell that have investors and, like you said, a restaurant group that really puts in, and then there's the small mom and pop shops that are like, I want to do this on my own.
Yeah.
So that's a great question, though. Like, how is this city going to come back jumping again?
Yeah.
In all of the restaurants, and even bringing in the top of the top servers that have left and training the youngsters that are trying to get into restaurants.
The new
to be
chefs,
really
the new somms, yeah.
Like, what is it that's driving this region of the food culture a little on waves right now, on a ship that's rocking back and forth? That's how I feel when I go out for dinner now, though. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, this was great, but like, things are missing.
Yeah.
I talk about it all the time. Is it the cooks that went to school here and they don't live here anymore because they know that they could go back home?
Yeah.
And get all the best produce that we sell here
Yep.
over there now.
Take their talent with them and be the biggest fish in the pond.
Yeah. And then they could go open up a restaurant in 4 or 5 years from learning because they're like, they don't have any of this stuff here. Let's go.
And they're not competing against
correct
everybody here.
I mean, it was the hardest thing when I first moved here in 2016 and like applying to other restaurants, and I'm like, wow, you're like fighting for this job. And now it's just like, oh wow, you could like take your time here and there if you're able to, and you could choose wisely, then choose on the fly, and then be like, oh man, I got to quit this job in a year, but let me have it on my resume because this restaurant's so dope.
Yeah. It's going to open a lot of doors for me.
Yeah. I think the drinking thing, we're so well known for cocktails here too. Yeah. And there's bartenders.
Cocktails and wine is like just as well as food, you know?
Yeah, it's still on that same height. I mean, we live in the best state.
Yeah.
You got Napa there. Yep. You got everything right then and there. I mean, all the wine regions across the whole state. So it's pretty interesting, though, to see how people have fluctuated from not drinking but to eating. So now how do you make the food...
Pay for everything. Yeah.
I've tried to figure that out. So I'm still figuring that out when I sit down at restaurants when I'm not in the kitchen, figuring out how do you make the food cost better? How do you go to this vendor instead of this vendor when you love their stuff, but this one is just a little bit cheaper? Yeah. Will it make a difference on the menu price when you're doing it? I mean, like, for instance, at one place, I shop for beef because I'm like, none of this beef is cutting it for me. And a lot of purveyors didn't want to start with a new restaurant right away because you don't know what's going to happen. They don't have enough money right off the bat, so on and so forth.
Whereas if you were part of a restaurant group, you would immediately have the cachet to just credit app everywhere.
Yes, and get the best of the best. And there was a great warehouse that had the best of the best. And I'm like, you got to do it to hit the cost so you could get the best of the best. And that thing sold like hotcakes. It'll be interesting to see what owners and chefs and bartenders do. I think bartenders just need to understand that it's okay that they're not drinking alcohol, people. I think over COVID, people have got a hold of social media, and there's a lot of doctors and a lot of influencers that are like, this is bad for you. maybe every day, and a lot of it every day. But I think we're humans and we created stuff, and I think we're meant to enjoy what we're be able to produce on this planet. I think restaurants and bartenders should enjoy making. They should find ways how to enjoy making non-alcoholic drinks that people will buy a few at a time, not when it's. I get why they're $14 and $12 and expensive. They gotta match the alcoholic price,
right?
Put the good ingredients in, so forth and so forth. But you gotta explain the story. I think to the guests that are like, "Oh, I just want water,"
right?
And why there's amazing non-alcoholic drinks too if you're not willing to drink.
Yeah.
It's kind of finding. You got to find how to steer them in. I think we were talking about something before and how to talk to the client. So you're talking to the guest who walks to the front door of your bar or restaurant is the client.
Right.
You got to ask them what they enjoy, what they like. So imagine places that just was like, hey, we got $8 cocktails.
Yeah.
Why can't there be $8 cocktails or happy hour non-alcoholics?
Yeah.
People will non-alcoholic drinks, and I think food, people will still go out. I think so. It's okay to get another buzz some other way these days.
Yeah.
And
that's very much what's happening.
And that's what's happening right now. I think people are still a little scared to spend money. I think, unfortunately, things are.
Yeah.
Who knows what goes on, but I think ever since COVID started, things just went different ways for humans, and this is an industry that's still here, unfortunately, still trying to figure out how to stay open.
Yeah.
And be constantly busy. I think San Francisco is a tourist. That's where a lot of the reservations came from. I unfortunately, this hub was techie more. A lot of giants left. How many people will come back here? They don't have to.
Yeah.
So that's I would love to see who's at the forefront of getting a place with food and drinks, and if they need help, I'm here to help them.
I love that.
Because I think it's important to also be open-minded to the other people now that are like, oh, social media is making me healthy. I'm not drinking because it doesn't let me sleep at night, or I feel crappy in the morning. And totally understand that.
So important. Take
now.
Care of yourself.
I think a lot of people, especially in our industry, who drink a lot on the job or even after work would go get the shift at the bar next door and stay out till 2-3 in the morning and wake up at 10 o'clock and be like, I got to go to work. And it takes us a while to get out of bed. It takes us a while to get going. And it's adapting to what people need. And I think that's where, going back to Texas and the Southeast and all of East Coast, they figured out that, hey, we just got to adapt to it.
Yeah.
Then try and make the change. We got to adapt to the people that want it.
Yeah.
Maybe take the microphone and ask the people as they walk out of office buildings, be like, hey, what are you missing out
Why aren't you spending money in the restaurant?
Why are you holding all your money?
Yeah.
Is it that they're still able to just roam around 3 days out of the week and 4 days they just need to be in an office or in their computer, and they're like, hey, I don't need to step foot out. But when you go to the concerts and stuff, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Everyone's here still.
It's a good point. Yeah, the concerts are packed. The events and experiences are blowing the doors off. Yeah. And that's one of the things that Bianca and I have been talking about lately is just like, people do like a, flight night, or they'll do like, like whatever, name it, like a winemaker dinner, or, we're talking about doing a night market and just having like some retail wine, a few things by the glass. We're going to try to partner with Spanish Table. I still need to reach out to him and have like a tin fish section. It's this girl that makes these really sick candles on Valencia Street. She has this butterbeer candle that rocks. Have like a candle booth set up where people can like sell stuff. And it's like, it's the holidays. Like, make it fun.
Yeah. And I think that's like that food hall down on Market Street, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know the name?
Not the one. It's the one next connected to IKEA. Yeah, we were just there, and I can't remember the name.
I was just there a couple months ago, and I walked in there. I'm like, wow, this is great, but
so cool.
I compared it to one that was in Miami, and I'm like, this is boring.
Really?
There's nothing to do there besides grab food.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like you got to give the people another attraction, I think, in order to stay there, not just IKEA and go walk around and sit on furniture. It's like, why should we come down to Market Street to this food hall?
May as well be a food court in a mall.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt like it was. It was good food. I had Arabic food, I think, and it was delicious. I'm like, wow, this is delicious. Yeah. But then it's like so expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is fair. It's delicious. It's good portion. I understand why the price was that price. But I think these like food halls I think these places that are empty here could be turned into food halls that are, like what you're saying, experiences. There's a nice speakeasy somewhere in there, or like a nice cool bar that you gotta like open up and figure it out how. Those kind of places, I think people in San Francisco and in the Bay Area will enjoy.
Yeah.
And with all these big places that are like...
It's San Francisco.
And it's San Francisco. Someone's annoyed at someone.
Of course. Always. Anyways.
So
the mics actually, I used to think that the mics picked up everything, but we'll probably be able to hear it a little bit.
I think those are great, but I haven't seen one here that works.
Yeah.
I know there's a restaurant group that's opening up a cool spot. I think it's in the Mission Rock area. That's supposed to be like that, but I don't think... Again, they're trying to go get money before they're trying to make this thing work very well and then produce money.
Yeah.
Where I think these food town halls would be awesome here.
Yeah.
I think even if there's like 3 doors that are for lease, I think people should do that and
group together.
Yeah. And not make it so compact though, and not make it so tiny. I went to like a burger joint the other day and I'm like, wow, this place is really cool. But there's nowhere to eat.
Yeah.
And if there's more than that many people in there, you're going into your car or standing outside.
Yeah.
And you want to eat a burger when it's hot, not when it's cold.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay, cool concept, but like, why didn't you just make a bigger space with other things involved and then do it? Like, I understand the concept, but what you're saying is like, why aren't these people, or why don't we just do it? Oh yeah, you need a lot.
We need a fuckload of money.
That's why.
Yeah.
And when you don't have all that money, you can't really do it because then the real estate doesn't. Landlords are like,
got to pay the architect. The architect has to approve everything.
Yeah, because nothing is beautiful inside and doesn't look the way. So I think those will work very well here, though, if they're done well. If they give like a theme to them, and not just 4 walls with paint and some wood that's sitting above your head. Like make it theme, make it willing to come back more than once and more than twice. I think those would work. Wonderful here. I love like what Stone Sound Mall is doing right now. They have a Japanese food court style thing that's going in there.
Awesome.
Like, it's massive, and they're bringing it from Japan, and I'm like, this is what this kind of place needs, and that mall is transforming into like, I want to say like a Japan style town where you see all these cool stores in there, and then you're like, oh, wow, all these...
Yeah, they had the bullet train sushi and stuff. That was relatively new.
There's a ramen shop that's coming from Japan opening up in there. I'm like, wow, this place is really coming together, and it's a theme.
Yeah.
It's a theme, and I understand why they're doing it there, because the theme makes sense there. Imagine if they were a restaurant group or investors are like, Soma, let's do something cool for the people that live in the towers.
Yeah.
What do they want? Well, we got to go ask them what they need. And I think that's really key these days now is finding out what people want.
Understanding the market,
Kind of like when you would come in and sell wine to the goat. I'd be like, oh, great palate. Let me go let him taste my food. Not just because you know me, but you understand what's going on. You understood the wine there, and that's what people need. They need others to taste.
Yeah.
And collaborate and not be shy about, hey, this shit sucked.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who are young are like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, why isn't anything selling? Or, I can't open this up. And it's pretty, it's pretty interesting. But I think knocking a few doors down and opening up a theme place would be really interesting.
It could be cool. I mean, we really love, like, the thing that we're consulting on is like a coffee shop during the day, and then it turns into a wine bar at night. And we love that. I mean, we wish we could serve coffee at night because a lot of people walk up and they see the coffee machines.
Yeah.
They go like, "Oh, I'll take a double espresso," and I'm like, "Sorry, no,
we're a wine bar tonight."
Yeah. And then we went to Santa Cruz recently, and we went to this really great place. We went to Santa Cruz in Q1, but it feels recently. And it was this place called Bad Animal, and it was like this cute, like, used bookstore / wine bar with food.
Cool.
And we walked in. You have a glass of wine. You walk around. You buy books and shit. It was it's great. And I think of, like, I'll give a holler to 165.
Yeah.
You know, it has, like, you know, the patisserie on the first floor, a chocolate factory or whatever on the second floor. The third floor is like a bistro. The fourth floor is like a cocktail bar. The fifth floor is a tasting menu, and the sixth floor is like an event space. And, you know, in Oregon, when we go visit her family, there's all these, like, food truck. It's like a food truck hall. So there's this big beer hall in the middle, and then they park food trucks all around the outside that are all different cuisine.
Yeah.
And that's fucking cool as shit because you can go and hang out with your friends, and there's small bites, and everybody can get whatever they want.
You know who might shook up the scene here? Maybe Brad Kilgore.
Who's
Cafe Sebastian.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just because he has that flair that's happening in Miami, and I think he could be somebody who could rock it here. And he's the first person from out of state to really bring something into the city, like straight up right into the city.
Yeah.
I've worked for chefs who were from other places, but they're outside of the city. So I could see maybe like him and then bringing others in here.
Yeah.
But I think it needs that kind of stuff. It needs that theme. Like
a draw.
Yeah.
Not just food. Like, it's great, but it's a little saturated right now.
Yeah. There's a lot of the same that happens here too, especially because we're just have all the same farms. Every other restaurant, we all deal with the same farms, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But then you see a lot of the same similarities because we like to eat out at
seasonality happens.
Yeah. Which is awesome because you're like, wow, how are they doing that right now with that persimmon, or like what are they doing with that pomegranate? And then citrus is coming along right now. So it's really cool to see how all these restaurants and the chefs especially like go with the seasons and they drastically change. And some take like their old cool techniques and flip it into something even more brilliant. And it's just really fascinating to see the restaurants here that they're capable to do that. Where a lot of restaurants, let's just say like I'll bring up the East Coast again, they need to do the same stuff because unless they're a high-end restaurant shooting for something, they can't really change up their food because they need to go for the clientele.
People need to know them and recognize them and be willing to like go back, right? Versus like every time I go, something's different. So I really like that dish. I go there, I get my manicotti, I get it every time, and you took it off the menu. It's like when I was in Texas, I remember places would take like coconut shrimp off the menu, and it would be like people would fucking revolt, you know, like, this is absurd. That's my favorite dish. Yeah, exactly. It was a Cisco frozen coconut shrimp with the fucking remoulade or whatever the shit on the side, you know, and people would like go berserk. Like, I can't believe you took my favorite dish off the menu. Whereas, you know, like here in San Francisco, like, I mean, you know, not every restaurant, obviously, but a lot of restaurants are changing the menu constantly.
Constantly.
I mean, we always had lamb in the pork chop.
Yeah, but they were the staple to be the component to the stars.
Right.
They weren't the stars of the plate.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I loved about Nancy. Gosh, like watching her destroy a dish and rebuild it.
Yeah.
Or making the potato the star. That's the secret to it.
Yeah.
That's the secret. Taking that one less thing that's not expensive.
Also, yeah.
To make the dollar on the plate.
Yeah.
Where that's what I grasped a lot too, was like, wow, It wasn't changing up the proteins and changing the way the proteins were cooked. It was changing the way those flavors were combined with the protein or with the veg plate that was seasonal throughout the year. It was the star was the vegetables. The stars were the vegetables.
Oh, the risotto on the scallops fucking rocked. Scallops were great, but the risotto was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just the simplicity that her and Dana put together. And yes, it's 30-something years.
30 years. I think it was like February they celebrated 30 years.
And that's a restaurant I talk about a lot. Out of a lot of the restaurants I've been through, worked at, even dined at and staged at, that's one that I go back to and I'm like, they're still doing something right.
Yep.
I'll go there and visit them. I'm like, wow, the team is different, but the food is great.
Yeah. Yeah, they can do it well with 50 covers and they can do it well with 400 covers.
Yeah.
And I think that's also another thing is like they just have the system down.
Yeah. It's not that, she had Michelin and all that stuff on her back, but the same system is still down.
Yep.
Nothing changed.
Yep.
Michelin changed.
Yep.
Michelin
changed.
wanted something different.
Yep.
Weren't they like the first in the city to get
They were one of the first.
Michelin here?
Yeah.
So it's like Michelin had to change. It wasn't Boulevard that changed and they stopped getting
Spruce lost theirs, Danko lost theirs, and those places are still in business. They still kick ass and they're still benchmark restaurants, you know?
Yeah.
So.
And those kind of restaurants is what the kind of the protocols that I would follow. Because those are the ones doing it right. So if I was like doing a small, intimate, fine dining, 10-course, 11-course meal, I'm still following the big restaurants that I worked for because they had to do it right. to make the money, to pay their employees, to also make the profit that they were making. So you go in and you get the $45 pork chop. Well, it's $45 for a reason, but you're rarely walking away from that meal complaining about it.
Yeah.
And till the end, it's all about from the beginning of walking through the front door to the dessert and then to how the server comes up to you every day. And I think that's the key to a successful restaurant. And then the behind the scenes does it all, but it's the forefront.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also too is like another thing that you said is like also learning to make money is a really important thing that I think like a lot of places don't think about that much. And it's something that we were also talking about earlier, but can remain something that we don't necessarily dive into too much. But it's like, restaurants are very focused on like swing for the fucking fences and like have this really fucking impressive thing. And it's like, that's great, but you're losing your ass on it, or the Michelin restaurants, that open and don't have, the Cotonia to the Quince. Cotonia makes money. Quince probably makes money, but like not as much as they could. And they kind of need that other outlet, I think, a lot of times.
Do you think, because I think about like that place and some of the places that have the chef still there and not just this celebrity chef that is on the run. Oh, I'm going to pop into the kitchen tonight. I just want to disrupt all the
fuck up the pass and then leave.
Everything and then leave at 7 o'clock because I'm like, I don't need to be there because they all got it for me now.
Yeah.
And do you see that, or even maybe even like the Psalms, or I think the Psalms are got to be there a little bit longer, but do you ever like wonder and it's like how do they not feel bad when they leave their restaurant? Because like you see Tusk and even Nancy Silverton's a different person now. I'm talking about a different Nancy, but like you see these big players like Nancy Oakes that they're there 5 days a week that nurture their babies, not to nurture it to make money, but to make sure quality's still there even when they have their CDC putting out the food. Because I think that's key.
It's so important.
I think that's key. Like, yes, you could venture off and open a bunch of restaurants everywhere and open things up and be the celebrity that you want to be, but I also think that it's key to hone your food because you got these people running around with stars on their chests handing them out. You lose one, your mental's fucked up, and then you're screwed because you just can't deal with you lost
spiraling.
One star and you're spiraling. And this is what I love who Marco Pierre White is. Probably my favorite chef of all time. Is that he was never going for them. He just got them. And then he realized, like, oh, I'm cooking for these people now. I don't want that.
Yeah.
And it was like, do I hand them back or do I keep going with this and deteriorate my life for wealthy people. Like, unfortunately, the one that really would give you all your money doesn't come in there every day unless you're very wealthy and you could afford the $400 or $500 tab.
Right.
I'd rather go get the person that wants to spend $100 every month. The guy that sits at the bar and comes in there once a week. That's who I want. Yeah. Yes, those Michelin restaurants have them, but they don't have all of them that come in there that gives them the benefit of the doubt. I think that's the key is so the standard doesn't go down, the person needs to be there. It's art. You stop painting, your art's still wealthy, but you also have a roof and a kitchen that needs to stay up. You don't have a studio that's in your
still have
room.
more shit to pay for.
Yeah. So it's like how what I would love is interview one of them that's been going through it. Not even I can't even say Eric Repair where I stashed for and like Daniel Hum or Daniel Ballou because they're a different breed. Like the ones that are doing it now that have their first star, second star that are like hungry for it still. Yeah. Where do they see that side of the industry going? And how are they grasping those cooks?
And how do you see it play out?
And how do you see it play out? Because there's some in here that are restaurant group based in the city, and they're like, well, they got money from a handful of people for X amount of reasons, and when you get into management and you become a chef, you know that those people they get a subsidized to go eat there, or they use their money that they make to go eat there.
They pay for it with their company card.
So
yeah. I worked this really awesome charity event at Foodwise at the Ferry Building, and they wanted SOMs and stuff. And I went and I did it, and they were like, raising money to like help the less fortunate and stuff. And I was like, this is so cool. And they had these auction items, and these people were spending so much money. And I was just like, damn, these people are fucking loaded. And then I was like, wait a minute, they're putting it on their company card and then they're writing it off. What the fuck? Like they just spent $9,000 for 10 people to eat at the new Sorrel that's opening in the Ferry Building, before it's open. Yeah. And I was like, damn, these people they really support this charity, or like they must be really excited about this restaurant. I'm like, yeah, but kind of, but they also get a tax write-off. Plus, they get to go to this dope-ass meal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a system.
It's a system.
When understand that system, you understand it. It's like when I did my first food and wine festival, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And they're all great. Like, everything that everyone does for these donations and fundraisers goes to a good profit and charity. But the way that it happens is just like, wow, is that ugly or is that good? Right. Yeah. Like when I was in Florida and I did a lot of food and wine festivals here and the food and wine festivals here, and you're like, wow, like great benefits, but tax write-off. Yeah. Yeah. So how much do they care?
Yeah.
At the end
is
of
it
the
a
day?
necessary evil, or is it actually a benefit?
And I think we can't look at that because that's just the way that our life.
I think we'd go mad if we just looked at that, because every single person would be so different.
I would.
I would do it. I mean, I would enjoy it, and I would care, right? Like if I had an extra 10G to donate to something, I would want to donate to something I actually care about, know? Yeah. But if I had millions and millions of dollars that I just needed to donate all the time, maybe it would become a little less important. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can see that.
I think one of the things that you talked about that I want to just like bring back up and highlight that I always really loved is, how much I enjoyed my time at Boulevard as well. And one of the things that I always loved and appreciated was the fact that Nancy was there as much as she was. And, I would tell people I was working at 8 Tables and then I was working at Quince, and I would load up on family meal at Boulevard before I would go to Quince. And they would go like, oh, aren't you going to get a plate? And I'm like, oh, I'm full. And they're like, oh, you already ate? I'm like, yeah, I ate at Boulevard. I was working lunch. And they're like, oh, is family meal over there? I'm like, family meal there kicks the fuck out of this family meal. Like, Nancy, I'm like, Chef Nancy cooked for me today. She cooked family meal for us like 3 days a week, you know? And like...
Yeah, she cared.
She cared.
She cared.
Oh, her pozole. Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. Oh, and I would go in and get pozole day. I was so excited. But yeah, she cared, and she was there. And, again, like... I've always said, like, she's one of the most intimidating people I've ever met. Like, she just has this, like, she's not like bitchy. She's not anything. She's just so quiet. And you know, she's so fucking talented and she's so sharp.
Yep.
That just like standing next to her and not saying something feels fucking awkward.
Yeah.
So working next to her would be really intimidating. You know? But
yeah. Family meal was amazing there. Loved it.
Yeah.
Thank you
for
all that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, so it was my first day of work there. And I go to the sous chef, David. He's an awesome guy. And I go, does Nancy ever work here?
Right.
And he's like, all the time. She's just in Europe right now.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I want to work for a chef that's here.
Right.
My chef before was like, I'm the chef.
Yeah.
There's my CDC.
See you in a month.
See you at nighttime. And I'm like, I can't work for those people because I'm not learning off of them. Mm-hmm. And when I saw Nancy there for 5 days out of the week, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And then after,
and she's driving an hour and a half to get there.
Yeah. But it was just amazing every time I saw her in there, in like the first year probably when I was there, because I'm like, she's well known around the world. Like she has her restaurant going. Like you kind of see chefs that aren't always there. They're in the background scenes and they let it just run on its own because it's not just the chef getting the Michelin nor the front of the house manager, it's the whole team.
It's the whole team, yeah.
Right, but when I saw her there all the time, I was just amazed. And that's what probably kept me there because I knew that between her demeanor and Dana and the whole team there, the whole management team in the front of the house.
Tim and Jonah and all those guys in the kitchen too. Yeah.
Was so beneficial to me just talking to them and opening up to them. And I don't like talking about it too much, but I saw something in them, and I think they saw something in me where they're like, oh, we could train and mold this person. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, I wish I was there longer than 4 years.
Yeah. Because
it was so good. But yeah, standing next to her when I was like the sous chef over there, and like she'd be like, yeah, come work next to us. And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm going to fuck everything up today.
Right. Yeah.
And she's going to scream and yell at me and whatnot. It was more watching how she works and how they maneuver.
Probably the efficiency of movement.
And the efficiency and how, God, the best thing, and I teach everyone this now, and I bring it around with me every time, herbs. She's like, why are you picking all the basil? I'm like, that's what you're supposed to do, right, chef? Like, yeah, but like, I forget whatever thing she said, but she's like, well, why don't you shift and audit from the stems? They're soft stems. Like, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Use the whole plant.
Yeah.
Now I do that with almost everything besides like the firm, like a rosemary, but like even mint now, like I'll pinch the twigs.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh, that's soft. I could use the whole thing. And I'll just shift and nod that part first and then go all the way to the stems on how I wanted, all the way up to the leafy part and cut it how I want it. And that's when it all started clicking. I'm like, she's somebody to learn from and master what you need to hone so you could grow. And I've seen so many cooks and so many sous chefs leave and do their thing, and even people before me doing their thing, and you're like, wow, there was something there that you grasp if you understand what's there to grasp. And when there's other sous chefs that became sous chefs as they were cooks when I was there, and just seeing them still there, I'm just like, that's powerful to them.
So cool, yeah.
And it's so cool because you're seeing a legacy go on. But working next to her and Jonah and Tim and G1 and Dana and just that whole 9 yards was a thing to understand how you need to be somebody being in that game of hospitality.
Yeah.
And one day she told me something. I'm not going to say because I don't want to hurt anyone's feeling. And it was all nice and stuff. But it was an eye-opener. It's like, why are certain people doing this? Why are certain people coming to become a cook? Are they becoming a cook because they have no idea what they want to do?
Right.
I think that's what majority chefs do.
Yeah.
I kind of would like to talk about that too.
Fall into it.
Yeah, they just fall into it and they're like, oh, this is my life. This is what I'm doing. And I'm like, but whatever, that's good for you. And then there's this one guy that came from the Philippines and awesome dude, wanted to learn everything, taught him as much as I could. he opened up his own like medical office, and I'm like, wow, that's what I love to see is them doing what they want to do, not just, oh, cooking's cool and I could be in the kitchen.
It's just a job.
It's just a job, because when you get to a certain point, and I was nervous too, I'm like, well, I see this guy next to me that's 35, 40 years old that's still twerking on the line, and I'm like, how do they do this still? Like you could tell that they've been in it too long, and when I saw that this person did that, and I was just like, they're doing what they need to do for themselves. They're not doing this just, I don't know what to do in my life. Right. And when I saw that was meaning, because what Nancy told me was exactly what that whole concept was about.
Right.
Was how this person was able to find themselves.
Yeah.
And did something that they also truly are passionate about too, than just be a cook and cook all day, and then when you get older, you're like, oh shit, I don't know how to do this. And then unfortunately, no offense to corporate, but then you're like, oh, I got to go in one way because I got to make bills and I got to need medical and need all that. So when I saw that, I was just like, oh, this person learned something too, though. Not just from me, but from the whole mainstream of the restaurant scene. But yeah, working for Nancy and seeing how she brought so many people up to speed, and there's chefs here that are well known through her skills, and Boulevard mainly is just like, that's an inspiration. I mean, when I was still living in Florida, I bought her cookbook at TJ Maxx, and I saw the ceiling, the brick.
Oh, the old brick,
The whole brick, and I'm like, that's me.
Yeah.
That's my atmosphere.
Yeah.
And when I saw the kitchen and I saw the recipes, I'm like, that's who I am.
Right.
That's where I want to be. And that's why I love telling the story about Boulevard so much, because it's just an amazing place. I mean, you get inspired from talking about it, I'm sure, when you were with John and doing that whole side also too. And it's a staple here. Yeah, it's 100% staple here for everybody that crosses the restaurant industry. And I could tell when I was in there a few months ago with the cooks that I'm like, there's no one that I know, but there's a few dishwashers that were in Porter when I was there. I'm like, this guy's crushing it on apps, and apps was the hardest station there. The hardest. If you weren't like people would say, if you ain't if you're not the top of the top, you're not going on there. Right. And you'd see people just burn on that station. Yeah. And to see how...
Well, there'd be 3 people shoulder to shoulder to dig them out.
That's just to dig them out. And you're like, well, the apps are going to slow down the oven, and the oven is never going to be able to fire their food. And that's when you just get backed up and you're cooking until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. And to know that the apps on that kitchen was the run of the show was probably the best thing to know, because it was the wheel of the show. Yeah. And how every chef and every restaurateur says, it is the apps is the show of the place, and then the desserts the show of the place. Because you can mess up on a protein and people are okay, because majority of guests know that there's a human behind there cooking. Sure. Yeah. And if you don't see what the kitchen looks like, you don't know if they're weeded or not, but you kind of understood when something messed up over there. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's an accident.
You can see the chaos, but also you can see a giant fucking restaurant with a huge footprint. Yeah. And all the food is getting prepared by like 6 or 7 people working behind a counter. Yeah. That's fucking nuts. Yeah. You know, like when you think about it, like obviously there's a lot of people that did a lot of prep work to get to that point, but like, 6 or 7 to 8, 9 people, whatever it may be total, are behind there preparing for 400 people or 350 on a Saturday night. I mean, we were doing, the 350 on Fridays and Saturdays regularly. Yeah. Yeah. And when you think about it like that, it's like, that's super fucking impressive.
Oh, yeah. 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 It was an impressive team. Yeah. Like, everyone there, it was a orchestrated place for sure. Everything was dialed in from the prep team who she had from day one from her first restaurants, and to see how they knew what to do. There wasn't like, oh, what's this chef? It was like, oh, okay, I got you. Yeah. And they knew. Yeah. And it was taste this, and then it was one time the dices and you're cooking for 350 people, and every plate and every little thing needs to be almost to perfection. is just insane, and that there's a whole team downstairs that's prepping the tedious things so the cooks could get it cooked properly is just wow.
Yeah.
It's a wow factor.
Yeah.
What they were doing there.
And that's one of the cool things, like you also touched on, is the retention of the employees, I think, is a testament to the culture.
I mean, you see some of, unfortunately, the cooks are hard to retain and sous chefs are hard to retain. But when I see a few of them that are still there, but the amazing part is, servers love to move around a lot, right?
They're mercenaries.
They love hustling for their dollar at tables. And when you go in there, right, I mean, you see them, they're still there.
Yeah.
Some of them that are still from the early 2000s, maybe some from the 90s still.
Yeah.
That are still there because of one reason. Nancy's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not Boulevard's amazing. It's because this lady is just great and she really puts her heart into what she did and what she does now.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. I remember before I ever met John, I read an article in Wine Spectator, and I don't even remember. It was like 2012 or something, and it was Wine Spectator was interviewing Nancy and John side by side, and it was just so cool to like hear the way they both thought about things the same way and both shared like the same vision and the same ideas. And I just always thought that was so fascinating that like the kitchen and the front of house could work together so in sequence, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of places you go, like either the front of house is driving the car or the back of house is driving the car. And the other people are just the wheel, you know, whereas like they were definitely like co-pilots. Obviously, Nancy is the visionary. Nancy is the heartbeat of the place. But it was just cool to see that like she was totally fine to just like trust John to do whatever John needed to do and whatever he wanted to do. And I just remember going like, that's so cool. And also, I mean, the thing about it is too, nobody was scared to work hard in that place. Everybody worked hard. No shade on any other restaurants or anything, but you know, John running the floor by himself with 350 covers is pretty fucking insane. Yeah. You know, the level of wine service is maybe not the same level of wine service of like a tasting menu where you have 10 courses, you have 10 different glasses that have to hit the table, 10 different descriptions of the wines that you have to give, like, you know, not taking anything away from that, but like one person working that floor with the amount of wine that we sold was insane. You know, and again, like the kitchen being as small as it was and doing as many covers as it was, yes, each customer wasn't getting 10 different plates, but most customers were getting 3.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You 350 covers at 3 plates a piece. Yeah. Nothing like 1,050 plates on a Friday and Saturday night, right? Yeah. The good old days. I like to go back in and pop in and see John and say hi to everybody.
Yeah, it's great and seeing it like still flourish. Like that's.
But they adapted,
and they knew how to adapt but that's what I was saying earlier. Though it's like we go back to the restaurants here that they're all trying to open up more and more and more to make $1 and $1 because they're like, well, if we open up 2 more, we could maybe balance out all 3 restaurants. And I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But now you have a bigger overhead
to
worry about than getting a dope place to be better.
Yeah.
Why can't you just do it in one place? And I get maybe it works to have 3 and 4, especially when you have a larger team, but does it pan out for this style of city?
I mean, for now. And then in 2 years, who knows what's going to happen?
Exactly. Especially when, like, you open up things in the South Bay and the Peninsula, and it's the same restaurant, not a different concept. The same restaurant.
Yeah.
So people are going to be like, oh, well, we have this place right here. We don't need to go over here.
Delfina Pizzeria. There was 4. Now there's 1. There's 1 in Palo Alto, and then there's the Delfina restaurant. Downtown location's gone. The one that was next door to Delfina's gone. And then there was another Elephant Sushi. There was 4. Now there's 2, you know?
Yeah.
K-Fico's expanding. They're doing really well, but also they're kind of launching things as different concepts. K-Fico Menlo Park is different. It's on brand. It has a theme like you're talking about. The pizzeria for the Chase Center, and then the classic, you know, location for the Divisadero. But yeah.
Different. They're all different concepts, but how much is all different.
Yeah.
The place in Menlo is great.
Yeah, yeah.
I got some pizza from there and sandwiches from there. Awesome.
Yeah.
But then how much does... Because I love those concepts.
Yeah.
What David did down in Menlo Park, where it's... You walk up to the counter, you get your pizza by weight, you could get a sandwich by weight, you get a little of this, a little of that, but how much people are shopping, though, then in the dry section? Because you see Epicurean and you see...
Italy down there.
Yeah, you see a lot of these shops that have a little bit of everything. Where who makes the balance sheets go a little higher? Because then it's like... All right, it's dry goods. It has an expiration date on it, but what is the criteria to all those components going together? Because it's also on a main road. You ever been there?
No. I've been to the facility, but it was before they opened.
So it's on the main road, and I kind of lived over there when I was working down there. I lived like right behind it.
Yeah.
And I love the whole area, but then I'm like, who's getting attracted? Yes, there's a area that you could walk to and you could walk over there, but I would really love to see the traction of it all on the day-to-day basis, especially because it's also next to Sanford, next to a downtown area, but also in a suburban area.
And then there was like living complexes above it and stuff.
Where how does that all work out then? Because like there's so much more around it that people are more familiar with than this one storefront that is great because it came from the city. But you also opened up and expanded for... Those are those things that like I'd love to sit down with restaurateurs and be like, what was this for?
Right.
What was your vision on this, and what do you expect to keep going on?
And how's it going?
Right? What's the deep truth down in here? Because you're having a business, you're creating a business. I'm someone that's like dibble dabbling in, do I want to create something or do I not want to create something because of the overhead and the expense of it?
Yep.
And then I look at these people who are restaurateurs, and they open up a different few things, and I'm like, that's awesome. But is it what you want?
Right.
Is this what you like?
Or is this the only way that you can survive?
Yes.
Yeah.
Same with like, I love Arsicle, right? Great croissants, great everything that they do there. Do they plan on keeping everything the same as their first store? Right. That's where I get scared when you're in this big, small city and you expand because you know that people drive all the way from Dogpatch, let's just say, to go get this beautiful croissant. And yes, I'm standing in line for it, even though I know when the day is not to stand in line for it.
Right.
And you could go during a certain day and go there. But that's where I really would love to have the answer. Is it worth having that extra place here in this city than rather like outside of it?
Right. Yeah, I guess time will tell.
Time will tell, though. And it's like the Chase Center. It's all beautiful and great things are opening up there, though. But how similar is it going to be from another side of the city already?
I mean, the Target on DuBois Street closed, and it was a small Target. There's the Target downtown. There was another like express Target downtown that closed. And then there's the two Targets in Daly City, which is, they're right across the freeway from each other, but both of them do well enough, and then same thing, Trader Joe's. Like, how many do you really need in, San Francisco proper, right? So I think it's interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing here.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because when I travel the country and I go to other cities and I'm like, wow, they're thriving. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Why aren't we thriving?
Or maybe they didn't hedge their bet on tech money. I think we just kind of sold our soul a little bit, and like we lost our way and life became unsustainable for so many different people, so many different walks of life. And, the hotel strikes are happening right now. And like the thing we keep hearing them say is like, one income should be enough. I'm like, fuck, that's how I feel. I wish just my job would pay for our household, right? And like, and then Bianca could do whatever she wanted, or we could put all the money into savings or whatever, but it's like, it's not, right? San Francisco is not a cost-effective place to live, unfortunately, yet. for now, I guess. But yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see what next year holds. And with people coming back to the office more, I'm really excited about that. And, I think that I'm hoping 2025 is the year when we kind of like wake up from our slumber and reinvigorate things a little bit. So
I agree with that.
I guess we'll see. How do you like the wine?
I love it. I'm still seeing this bag over this bottle.
I know.
Like, what the hell is this shit?
I know. There was one time actually. So this is a company from Austria, Ebner Ebenauer, and they make wine, and their wine they put in this bag sometimes. And there was only one time that it was actually Ebner Ebenauer in the bag. So it's always my little thing I try to throw people off. It's Nebbiolo. So this is Sangiovese Glicine. This is Chiavenesca is what they call it there, but it's genetically it's Nebbiolo. So this winery puts Nebbiolo and Chiavenesca on the front, so that way they don't piss anybody off.
Yeah.
It's from Valtellina in northern Lombardy, and I like it. It's often a slightly softer version of Nebbiolo. Tannin's a little softer. The alcohol is probably 13.5. A lot of, Longa Nebbiolo can be 14.5. And so just thinking of kind of like a fun red to drink and talk. And I was like, that's cool. And then I was like, I wouldn't want to just drink that. That's cool. I wouldn't want to just drink that. And this I'm kind of like,
this is nice.
It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an easy drink.
Yep.
It's bold.
Yep.
Flavorful.
Yep.
Has all the fruits and vegetables, smells to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes like I get a wine and I'm like, especially when we do the podcast, and I'll just like keep drinking it and keep drinking it. I'm like, oh, I'm drinking a little too fast, And this is great because it's like you drink it, and then there's so much left on the palate that you can just kind of like sit and relax and just kind of experience it and let it lull you into comfort.
No, it's been nice.
Yeah.
It's definitely a great conversation wine.
Good, yeah. I think that's the point. And also, too, I thought about it because I was like, culinarily, you're obviously very talented, and so I like these wines because they're very gustatory wines to me. They're very like herbaceous. They have a lot of really great kind of like flavor profiles, and I would drink this with a meal. Yeah, I'd drink this with a pork chop at Boulevard. We got to get another bottle. We're gonna go in. Yeah,
gonna start cooking right now.
Yeah, no, maybe. Yeah, we should talk about that too. I think it's an idea that we tossed around that we definitely need to pin a date whenever you're back from your trip, your jaunt, and we need to kind of try to do something like that. And we're also at the place that we consult at. We've talked about doing, like a featured chef thing or like a pop up or like a pairing, like a one night pairing kind of thing. And so we can also talk about stuff like that. Yeah. But I love this phase that you're in right now where you have like full creative freedom and you have like an ability to kind of like think outside the box and ask yourselves the questions. It's real easy to get bogged down in the 9 to 5 or 5 to 9 if you're in the restaurant industry. 5 to 12. 5 to 12. Yeah. But yeah.
I would recommend if people are able to.
Yeah.
If they're not liking a job, not enjoying what's going on in their life or whatever is going on, definitely take a step back.
Yeah.
It opens more doors than you realize, even if you're scared to not have a job right off the bat. I mean, yes, of course you need savings and stuff, but if you have that and you've never said, hey, you know what, I'm not going to go find a job and then resign or then maybe get a shitty thing happen to you.
Yeah.
I think it's the best way because then more things come to you than you never expected. Because if you're working and no one's going to offer anything to you, no one's going to be like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? They all know you're busy working for somebody else all the time.
Yeah.
Then like, hey, you know what? It's time for me to go from this place. Let's see what comes to me.
Right.
Especially now, I mean, restaurants here and all hospitality is looking for the best of the best. And not everyone's here anymore.
Yeah.
And I think this is a big opener for chefs who are at their top, where they're ready for their next spot. This is the time.
Yeah.
If your head's in the wheel for it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I mean, I think that that's one of the things that I'm seeing a lot too is like, I'll go on like winejobs.com just to like scroll sometimes and I'm like, fuck, everybody's hiring.
Everybody.
And there's wineries that like have never had positions before that are creating new positions because, well, they're anticipating 2025 to be a better year, but also too, on top of that, I think that like, I'm hoping that San Francisco's trending upward enough to justify it, but it's also, it's an employer's market right now. And like you said, they're looking for the best because they can do that. They can afford the best and they can hold out for the best. They can ride their team a little lean for a few months while they look for the right fit versus just like, fuck, give me anybody and put them in the seat,
Yeah. I don't know how much people are moving here though that are in the industry though. I couldn't say a lot of people are flocking here though to go find that job.
Not right now. I think, again, I think we're just in this weird holding pattern again of like waiting for more back to office, waiting for more commuters.
And then my thing when I talked about Brad Kilgore, who opened up in the Trans-American building, he's the one who's starting it. Mm-hmm. Watch. He's like, hold on, I'm in Miami. I have this already. Yeah. It's time to venture out west now to show them what's really up about all of us on this small, big Miami city.
Yeah.
That's who I see that's about to start coming out here.
That'd be cool. I thought, when the Macy's building was going to close, I'm like, putting an Italy in there would be fucking sick. Yeah. Or this thing that they do in Japan, too, is like, they'll have one building and, one floor will be a restaurant and then a bowling alley and then a karaoke bar. And then, like, each floor is kind of its own thing. And it's this multi-use building where, maybe you're not, or the person owns the whole building, or you're not like in the same business, but like you can do a bunch of things. Like you can play putt-putt and then you can go upstairs and watch a movie and then you can go have dinner and you're spending 8-9 hours there, and you're walking out and you had a hell of a great time. And it was, it was a more immersive experience. Right. So
I think if big companies like that could afford buildings like that, that will bring more life back here.
I'm hoping so. Yeah, I can't wait to see what has he opened yet? The thing on the top of the Salesforce Transamerica building.
What are you talking about?
Kilgore.
Oh yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, he's open. He also has a I don't know if it's a pastry shop, but it's some like sugar shop that he has going on too. But then he has like a day cafe that's open, I think, till I really want to go. But I really want to check it out, see what he's doing.
Yeah. And then we should go. Let's go. And then we can go to Nico afterwards and get some terrine and stuff. I love that shit. That whole area is so great. I love everything about that place.
I'm down. Then we could go to Catonia for some gelato.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. When they put the gelato cart out front, I love that. And Verjus just reopened.
Yes.
San Francisco's in a good place. There's a lot of cool things opening.
It's coming.
Yeah. I think we're heading in the right direction.
Slowly but surely it'll all come back. And come on, tourists, get back over here.
I know. Gigi's on Divisadero just opened. Shout out to Gigi's. Shout out to Madison, the Somme there. I think we're in for a treat. 2025 feels like it's going to be good. And if it's not, I don't know how much longer I can hold my fucking breath. So, cool. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there any advice you want to offer to people out there? Any industry folk or meditators or
advice? Advice is always good for people.
Yeah, I mean, if they listen to it.
If they listen to it and if they do it.
Right.
You got to do it. You can't just do it once or twice or 3 times and then hope that, nothing happened.
Yeah.
You got to practice. That's what I learned. Keep striving for the best, you know, even if you mess up in one section of your life, kind of like what happened to me, why I'm in between things and consulting now and doing odd things is because life happens and like sit with yourself, and if something bad happens, that's a great thing why it happened.
Yeah.
You don't beat yourself over the things that are beating you up. Because at the end of the day, you gotta soar. I mean, we could soar, we could crash. I crashed a bunch of times. I got kicked off the line twice in my career.
Yeah.
Best thing that ever happened to me. It's okay to fail.
Yeah.
Failing's okay.
Failing's okay.
Failing's okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay. We don't need to follow all the rules and laws in life in order to feel great.
Yeah. Focus on being happy, being in the moment.
Being happy, being in good place.
Yeah.
Make sure you're in a great kitchen if you're listening as you're a cook or a chef. Make sure the atmosphere that you're in is what you want, not just because that chef is the best chef and that will flourish on my resume. I don't think it's about the resume and about the cook and, sorry, not the cook, but about the chef that you work for. It's your demeanor. And if you put good demeanor out and you talk well and you show people that you're interested, you'll be great at what you do.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. Let's wrap it.
Cool.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for this. This
Thank you,
was
Chef.
awesome.